Hello, my name is Jim Copeland, and I'm a child sponsor and child advocate for Compassion International. I'm pleased to have with me this afternoon Ken Berkey, who's senior pastor with Green Valley Community Church of Placerville, California. Over the last 4 years, Green Valley Community Church has had 3 Compassion Sunday events, as well as 1 letter writing event. And as a result of that, 811 children have been sponsored by the members of this church. The purpose of this interview this morning is to kind of weasel our way into Ken's heart and mind and find out
Weasel.
find out his impression of compassion, his experience with compassion, and why he even considered compassion, to share compassion with the church in the first place. Ken, thank you for agreeing to talk with us.
Oh, thanks for having me here. I'm excited about this. This is going to be hard to not talk too much because I'm very passionate about this. So.
I know you are. To kind of start and to give people an idea of kind of who you are, what memory of social injustice, as you think back over the years, social injustice or poverty sticks in your mind?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing that I'll never forget, because it was the first encounter with real poverty, was in Mexico City in 1993. And we went into the depths of the garbage dump on the west side of the city, about 40 minutes in, going 20 miles an hour, and we got to the middle of the dump. Never seen anything like it, and villages and communities living out there. And deformity, poverty, and to be honest, I was angry at God at that point. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions with that. And you hear about it, but until you smell it and you see it, you touch it, and it broke my heart. I think so. I think that's the memory that. But I think also, though, what I learned through that there is if the church really makes a priority to deal with poverty, there's a lot that can be fixed. There's a lot. Yeah. There was an amazing ministry down there that was feeding and clothing, and it was making a huge impact.
Right.
But that kind of that was my first encounter.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned anger, because I was going to ask you what makes you angry in a general sense, but I've discovered as I get older that I think anger is sometimes the Holy Spirit's way of moving us into action,
right,
to do something.
I've heard of it, the term holy discontent.
Exactly.
That's that thing that just fires you up. Probably what makes me angry too, if it is I think the church, when the church doesn't really represent Christ, and we talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. And I think that the challenge in our world now is the church really has to be at the forefront of these social issues, these issues of how we take care of children in our world, and all the cliches of somebody, they don't care what you have to say with a empty stomach. They're just true. And so I think the church has to start positioning itself to really be doing the work that Christ called us to do.
Like the African saying, hunger has no ears.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. In the American church, again, we are good at telling people what they should do, but I think we need to be quiet for a while and just do it.
Do you think there's a little bit of vanity in churches as they form, each wanting to send out their own missionary or create their new programs, when a church 4 or 5 blocks away might be doing the same thing? You and I in the past have talked about a concept that I might call efficiency of charity or effectiveness of charity, where there may be someone else doing it more effectively, and maybe the church should hitch its wagon to what someone else is doing and forget minor doctrinal differences and go serve the need. Could you talk about that concept?
Yeah, I think it's an epidemic probably in the church world, especially the American church world, where we all want to recreate the wheel, and then we want to claim it as our own, and we're not very efficient, we're not very effective, because we've kind of watered down the resources rather than the hitching yourself on a wagon that's really equipped to do what needs to happen. I think churches, if it's a denominational church, sometimes is afraid to join in other denominations because they have their own pressures to meet their own budgets and their own agendas in their own denomination. All of that to say that I think that as the American church is looking, how do we solve the AIDS issue? How do we solve poverty? How do we solve disease in the world? An individual church cannot do that. We knew in Placerville, Green Valley, we just knew we want to make a difference. We want to go out and go beyond the comfort that we're living in America. But Green Valley, even though we're a large church, still, what are we going to go? Create our own networks, create our own. So that's where Compassion came in. Right. Compassion was for $1 a day, we can change a kid's life forever. And so let's humble ourselves. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. Let's go and what'd you say? Hitch our
wagon. That just kind of came to me as we were.
But to an amazing ministry and celebrate that. Not every denomination, not every church has to have some original thought. Let's go find out what's working, and that's in any area of trying to serve your community. Find out what other churches do well. Maybe help them do that. Maybe we do something well. Maybe other churches can help us do that. But when it comes to compassion, I don't know if there's a more effective and efficient way to solve.
Well, I'm very biased about that, and that.
I'm biased because I've seen it work. I've seen it work, and I see it work in our own congregation.
And I know you and your family sponsor, 4 or 5 kids at this point?
Yeah. So
that kind of leads into the next question. Compassion International is actually, the projects are administered, as you know, in 25 countries through local church projects.
Right.
And in 25 countries. And yet, when we as volunteers or advocates try to approach the American churches of the very same denominations, we often get, frankly, the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
And those churches that we approach may not even know that they're fellow denominations.
How many denominations?
57.
57 that are part of the Compassion Project churches.
Yes, and yet we can approach the very same churches, very same denominations here in the United States, and we get a cold shoulder. Why do you think it's so difficult for us to approach a pastor, such as yourself? Why do you think it's so difficult to get our foot in the door, to talk to a pastor about this wonderful ministry?
Let me throw out a couple thoughts, and that is, number one, pastors may be feeling they're just got a lot on their plate. They may have a lot of pressures with what they're doing already in their missions works. Again, like I said earlier, their denomination might have a certain amount of requirements and things, and they just feel like they can't. So it's those things. But I also think, I don't think most pastors, because I didn't, I did not understand the impact it would have on the congregation in a positive way. It can seem like, it's just another program. It's another thing I got to do, rather than really understanding the huge impact it had on families and on individuals, and how it kind of springboarded an awareness. When you do a Compassion Sunday, people are educated, and there's awareness all of a sudden of what's going on out in the world. There's not only an awareness of it, but they feel like I can do something about it. Everybody can. I mean, one child, $32, $1 a day. You have a teenager, you have a single mom, you have a family that's well-to-do. It levels the playing field. So everybody leaves there going, I can do something about this. I'm taking ownership. I have a child. I don't think most pastors understand how pure this is, and how it doesn't take money away from your congregation, whatever the worries are. It doesn't water down. It really raises the awareness, because Compassion continues to educate. And if you have a Compassion Sunday once a year, it's time to remind people of what's really going on in the world and how solvable so much of this is. I just can speak for our church. There was such a buzz. Right. You were here. There's such a buzz around here, again, just when you sponsor a child. Sometimes with missions you give, and that's good, but you don't really know where it goes. A lot of times, it's an important cause, but this is, you get to write to your child. You get to, it's a relationship. And so that's what I think it's very exciting.